I am Morgan, 32 years old, and today was supposed to be the happiest day celebrating my son Liam's first birthday. I spent weeks planning the perfect party, making everything special for my little boy. But there were two empty chairs where my parents should have been. Instead, I got a text that broke my heart. "We don't recognize this grandson." When they called asking for money again, I calmly said, "Good, just don't come asking me for money anymore." Dad laughed, but they had no idea what was waiting in their inbox. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from, hit like and subscribe to follow what happened next in this painful family journey. Growing up, I always knew my parents' love came with conditions. My father, James, built his identity around being a successful businessman. Everything in life was measured in dollars and cents to him, including relationships. My mother, Catherine, was equally obsessed with status and appearances. Their approval only came when I achieved something they could brag about to their friends. I learned early that emotional support wasn't part of our family dynamic. When I was 12, I remember winning second place in a science competition. Instead of congratulating me, my father said, "Second place is just the first loser. Winners make money, losers make excuses." That night, I cried myself to sleep. As a teenager, I worked twice as hard as my friends, not for my own satisfaction, but desperately seeking my parents' approval. Perfect grades, student government, volunteering that would look good on college applications. I did it all. My mother would display my achievements prominently when her friends visited, but privately, she constantly pushed for more. College was my first taste of independence. I chose a university 3 states away, not the prestigious Ivy League school they wanted. This decision created the first major rift between us. They threatened to withhold financial support, so I took out loans and worked part-time jobs. Those years were exhausting, but liberating. I graduated with honors in marketing and secured a good position at a digital advertising firm. It was at a work conference where I met Noah. He was presenting on consumer psychology, and I was immediately drawn to his warmth and genuine interest in others. After his talk, we chatted over coffee, and those minutes turned into hours. Unlike anyone I'd dated before, Noah really listened, when I spoke. He came from a tight-knit family who expressed love openly, something completely foreign to me. Our relationship progressed naturally, and 2 years later, we were married in a small ceremony. My parents attended but complained about the modest venue and how we should have opted for something more impressive. Noah's family embraced me completely, showing me what unconditional family support felt like. When I discovered I was pregnant with Liam, Noah and I were ecstatic. We called his parents first, who literally jumped with joy on our video call. Then came the call to my parents. I still remember my mother's first words. "Was this planned? Are you financially prepared for this?" Not congratulations, not excitement, just practical concerns about money. My father followed with questions about our health insurance coverage and whether this would impact my career trajectory. I hung up feeling deflated but tried to rationalize their response. Maybe they would warm up to the idea of being grandparents. Perhaps a grandchild would finally soften their materialistic outlook. I wanted to believe that this new life would bridge the emotional gap between us. Noah saw the hurt in my eyes after that call. He held me close and said, "Our child will never question if they are loved." In that moment, I vowed the same. The cycle of conditional love would end with me. My child would know they were precious simply for existing, not for what they could achieve or provide. Still, I harbored hope that becoming grandparents would transform my parents, that somehow the magic of a new life would awaken something in them that had been dormant during my childhood. I wanted to believe that they could change, that my son might experience the grandparents I had always wished they could be. I sent them ultrasound photos with little notes about the baby's development. My mother responded with texts about celebrity pregnancies and expensive baby products. My father sent articles about college savings plans. They were engaging but never emotionally connecting with the reality that a new family member was coming into the world. Noah reminded me that we couldn't control their reactions, only our own responses. With his support, I focused on the joy of my pregnancy and preparing for our baby, trying not to let my parents' emotional distance overshadow this special time. But deep inside, the little girl who had always wanted her parents' approval was still hoping for a miracle. As my pregnancy progressed, the distance between my parents and me grew more pronounced. We organized a small gender reveal party with close friends and Noah's family. When I called to invite my parents, my mother immediately asked if gifts were expected. "This gender reveal trend seems like just another excuse for presents," she said dismissively. "It is just a small gathering to celebrate this milestone," I explained. "No gifts necessary." "We have an important charity gala that weekend," my father interjected from the extension. "People who matter will be there." The implication was clear: our celebration didn't involve people who matter. I swallowed my hurt and said I understood, though I didn't. We learned we were having a boy without my parents present. The baby shower came next, organized lovingly by Noah's mother and my best friend Jessica. Again, my parents had a conflict, a business trip to Aspen that couldn't possibly be rescheduled. They sent an extravagant stroller that cost more than my first car delivered directly from the store. The card attached was signed by their assistant. At 5 months pregnant, I developed gestational diabetes and was put on bed rest for 2 weeks due to complications. Noah took time off work to care for me, and his parents drove 6 hours to help. My mother called once, asking primarily if my medical insurance was covering everything. When I mentioned feeling scared, she quickly changed the subject to a neighbor's divorce scandal. My father sent an email, not even a call, with links to articles about managing pregnancy complications, followed by a note that he'd had his assistant arrange for meal deliveries. The food arrived from expensive restaurants with strict dietary specifications that ignored my actual restrictions. It was a gesture, but an impersonal one that highlighted how little they knew about my daily reality. By the 3rd trimester, Noah had become increasingly protective. "I don't like how they treat you," he said one evening as I cried after another dismissive call with my mother. "They care more about appearances than your well-being. They show love differently." I defended weakly, though I was running out of excuses for their behavior. "Morgan, that is not love," Noah said gently. "Love shows up. Love listens. Love puts the other person first." At 36 weeks, I received a call from my father that still makes my blood boil when I think about it. After brief pleasantries, he cleared his throat and said, "Your mother and I have been discussing your financial situation. With the baby coming, we question the wisdom of this decision. Children are expensive and your household income seems insufficient for the lifestyle you should provide." I was speechless. Then anger rose in me. "We are doing fine financially. Noah and I have planned for this." "Middle-class fine is not what we raised you to aspire to," he replied. "It reflects poorly on us if our daughter is struggling." "I am not struggling," I said firmly, "and my worth as a parent won't be measured by the price tags on Liam's clothes." The conversation ended tensely. That night, I felt the baby kicking strongly, as if he was telling me he agreed. I placed my hand on my belly and promised him that his value would never be tied to financial metrics. When Liam was born after 22 hours of labor, Noah was my rock. His parents arrived with home-cooked meals and genuine excitement to meet their grandson. My parents came 3 days later, dressed impeccably as if for a business meeting. My mother held Liam briefly, careful not to wrinkle her designer outfit. My father took photos for the announcement, though I later discovered this meant a social media post showcasing their new status as grandparents to their business associates. They stayed exactly 45 minutes. As they were leaving, I overheard my father telling Noah about a client whose daughter had managed to return to her executive position just 4 weeks after giving birth. The implication was clear. Noah closed the door behind them and returned to where I sat with Liam. "You and this little guy are my world," he said, kissing both our foreheads. "This is what matters." I nodded, tears streaming down my face, partly hormones, partly the stark realization that becoming a grandmother hadn't changed my mother any more than becoming a grandfather had softened my father. The miracle transformation I had hoped for wasn't coming. Liam's first year was a beautiful chaos of sleepless nights, first smiles, and tiny discoveries. Noah and I navigated parenthood as a team, figuring things out together and treasuring each milestone. My career took a temporary back seat as I reduced to part-time hours, wanting to be present for those irreplaceable early months. Financial adjustments came with the territory. We budgeted carefully, cutting back on extras and prioritizing what mattered. We were comfortable, not wealthy, but rich in the ways that counted. Noah's parents visited regularly, bringing nothing but love and support, occasionally babysitting so we could have a date night. My parents remained distant, checking in sporadically with brief calls that felt like obligations. 3 months after Liam was born, something unexpected happened. My father called on a Sunday evening, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "Morgan," he began awkwardly. "How is the little one?" "Liam is wonderful, Dad. He's starting to recognize faces now." "Good, good." He cleared his throat. "Listen, I wanted to discuss something with you. Some investments haven't performed as expected. Temporary cash flow issues. Nothing serious." I was confused until he continued. "We were wondering if you might help us out. A short-term loan until things stabilize." The request stunned me. My parents had always been the financially successful ones, proud of their acumen. "How much are you talking about, Dad?" "50,000 would tide us over nicely." I nearly dropped the phone. That amount would wipe out most of our emergency savings. "I need to discuss this with Noah. Can I call you tomorrow?" "Preferably sooner. There is some urgency." That night, Noah and I had our first serious disagreement. He was firmly against the loan, seeing red flags in both the amount and the urgency. "Something doesn't add up," he argued. "They live in a mansion and drive luxury cars. Now suddenly they need our savings." "They helped me through college," I countered, though we both knew that wasn't entirely accurate. They had contributed partially with strings attached. "Morgan, we have Liam to think about now. That is our safety net if something happens." After hours of discussion, we compromised. I would loan them $25,000 with a written agreement for repayment within 6 months. Noah insisted on documentation, which my father reluctantly agreed to, calling it unnecessarily formal between family. The transfer was made, and for a few weeks my parents were uncharacteristically attentive. My mother called to check on Liam. My father sent thoughtful texts. I allowed myself to hope that perhaps this financial vulnerability had humbled them somehow, opening a door to a more authentic relationship. Then the repayment date came and went without mention. When Noah gently suggested I follow up, my father became defensive. "We are family. This bean counting is beneath us. The money will come when our situation improves." 3 months later, they needed another loan, this time for their property taxes, which seemed outrageous given their home's value. Against Noah's better judgment, I transferred 15,000 more, unable to shake the daughter who still sought approval. A pattern emerged. My parents would be absent for weeks, missing Liam's milestones: his first tooth, first crawl, first word. Then a financial need would arise, followed by brief renewed interest in our lives. After receiving money, they would disappear again until the next crisis. By the time Liam was 9 months old, they had borrowed nearly $60,000 with various excuses: unexpected tax audits, investment shortfalls, property repairs. Each time the repayment terms were acknowledged, but ultimately ignored. Noah finally sat me down with our financial statements spread across the table. "Morgan, we cannot continue this. They have taken a significant portion of our savings. At this rate, we will have nothing for emergencies, nothing for Liam's future." Reality hit hard. My parents' constant financial emergencies were more important to them than their relationship with their grandson. They would miss his first steps, but not forget to call when their luxury car needed repairs. They couldn't quite cover this month. I began to see the relationship for what it was: transactional. They viewed me as a financial resource, not as a daughter whose life events deserved celebration. The money flowed one direction, while genuine interest and emotional support were withheld. As Liam's first birthday approached, I made a difficult decision. There would be no more loans. I would invite them to the celebration, hoping against hope that they would show up for this important milestone, but our bank account was closed to them regardless. Noah supported my decision, relieved that I had finally established a boundary. "You are giving them the opportunity to be grandparents," he said. "The choice to take it is theirs." I sent a heartfelt invitation, including photos of Liam and a note about how special it would be to have them there. My mother called immediately, not to confirm attendance, but to ask if they could bring their friends, the Wilsons, who were potential investors in my father's new venture. "This is a family celebration for a 1-year-old, I replied, irritation seeping into my voice. "Not a networking opportunity." She reluctantly agreed and promised they would be there. I allowed myself one last fragile hope that my son's first birthday would matter enough for them to show up as grandparents, not as business people looking for connections or financial support. The weeks before Liam's birthday were a whirlwind of preparation. I wanted everything to be perfect, not extravagant but thoughtful and special. Noah and I chose a sunshine theme since our little boy had brought so much light into our lives. I handcrafted decorations during Liam's nap times, baked and froze cake layers in advance, and assembled favor bags with small toys and treats. Every detail was infused with love. I created a photo timeline showing Liam's growth month by month. Noah built a small play area in the backyard where the kids could enjoy the spring weather. His mother helped sew a special outfit for Liam to wear, with a little embroidered sun on the pocket. 3 days before the party, I called my parents to confirm they were coming. My mother answered with her society voice, the one she used when she wanted to seem pleasant, but was actually annoyed. Yes, we have it on the calendar. James, do we have Morgan's thing on Saturday? I heard her call to my father. 2 to 4 Liam's birthday, he called back, sounding distracted. See, all set, my mother said. Now, is there anything specific you need us to bring? A gift has been ordered, of course. Just yourselves, I said, trying to keep disappointment from my voice. They had never once asked what Liam might like or need. It would mean a lot to Liam and me if you could be there. Of course, she replied briskly. Oh, I must run. The landscapers are here about the new water feature. The day before the party, I received another call from my mother. Something in her tone immediately set off alarm bells. Morgan, darling, about tomorrow. We are so looking forward to it, but I wanted to check if you would mind terribly if we arrived a bit late. Your father has an unexpected call with Singapore that he simply cannot reschedule. How late are we talking, Mom? The party is only 2 hours long, from 2 to 4. Oh, not too late. Perhaps we might miss the first hour or so. I felt my heart sink but maintained my composure. The cake and presents will be around 3:30, so you should make it for those moments at least. Wonderful, she said, sounding oddly relieved. We will do our absolute best. The morning of the party arrived with perfect weather. Noah's parents came early to help with final preparations. Friends began arriving with their children, filling our home with laughter and excited chatter. Liam was passed from loving arms to loving arms, soaking up the attention and smiling his four-tooth smile. I kept glancing at the door and checking my phone. 2:30 came and went, then 3 o'clock. I sent a quick text. Party in full swing, hope you can make it soon, cake in 30 minutes. No response. At 3:20, as Noah was setting up the high chair for Liam's cake moment, my phone finally buzzed. My hands trembled as I read the message from my father. Catherine and I will not be attending today. Honestly, we just don't need this. We have reflected and do not recognize this grandson given the circumstances of his birth, despite our financial advice. Your choices have consequences. We will call next week regarding another matter. The words blurred through my tears. Noah noticed immediately and came to my side, reading the message over my shoulder. His face hardened with anger, but he kept his voice low. Do not let them ruin this day. Liam deserves his celebration. I nodded, pocketing my phone and plastering on a smile. We sang Happy Birthday, helped Liam smash his little cake, and opened presents surrounded by people who genuinely cared about our family. Through it all, I maintained my composure, determined not to let my parents' cruelty overshadow my son's special day. Only later, after the last guest had left, and Liam was asleep, did I allow myself to break down. Noah held me as I sobbed, the message replaying in my mind. We do not recognize this grandson. What kind of people say that about an innocent child? I cried. Their own flesh and blood. People who don't deserve to be in his life, Noah answered firmly. Or yours. That night my phone rang. My father's number. With shaking hands, I answered on speaker so Noah could hear. Morgan, my father began without preamble. We need to discuss a financial matter. Our investment property requires significant repairs before it can be leased. We are looking at $70,000. Obviously, we would prefer to handle this internally rather than with bank financing. I felt something snap inside me. The audacity to reject my child and then call asking for money was beyond comprehension. Let me get this straight. I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside. You text me that you don't recognize my son as your grandson, you miss his first birthday party, and now you're calling to ask for $70,000. The two matters are entirely separate, he replied coolly. Family disagreements shouldn't interfere with practical considerations. Good, I said. Then you will understand when I say this. Don't come asking me for money for your debts, bills, or problems anymore. Ever. My father actually laughed. Don't be dramatic, Morgan. You will reconsider when you've calmed down. No, Dad, I won't. We are done being your personal bank while you refuse to be proper grandparents. I ended the call and turned to Noah, who was looking at me with a mixture of pride and concern. You did the right thing, he said softly. It is not enough, I replied, a new determination forming. They need to understand that actions have consequences. They are not the only ones who can deliver those. The morning after Liam's birthday party, I woke up with absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. Noah and I sat at the kitchen table while Liam played in his high chair, blissfully unaware of the family drama swirling around him. I need to confront them face to face, I told Noah. Not just about the birthday, but about everything. The pattern of using us financially while refusing to be emotionally present. Noah nodded thoughtfully. I think that is necessary for closure, even if nothing changes. But I am worried about how they will react. I need to do this alone, I said. Would you mind watching Liam this afternoon? Of course not. Just promise me you will call if things get too intense and you will leave if they become hostile. I promised, then spent the morning gathering evidence. Bank statements showing all the loans, text messages documenting broken promises, and a detailed list of the milestones and events my parents had missed in Liam's first year. Armed with facts, I felt stronger. The drive to my parents' suburban mansion took 40 minutes. As I pulled into their circular driveway, I was surprised to see several luxury cars parked outside. Walking to the door, I heard multiple voices and laughter from inside. When I rang the doorbell, my mother answered, her face registering shock at seeing me. Morgan, we weren't expecting you. She was dressed immaculately in a designer dress, makeup perfect, looking like she had stepped out of a magazine. Clearly, I replied, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The large living room was filled with people, about a dozen of my parents' friends and business associates, all holding champagne flutes and engaged in animated conversation. My father stood by the fireplace holding court as he often did at these gatherings. He spotted me and excused himself from his group, approaching with a forced smile. Morgan, what a surprise! You should have called first. We are hosting an impromptu gathering for potential investors. The day after you refused to attend your grandson's first birthday, I stated flatly. His eyes darted around, checking if anyone had overheard. Let us discuss this later. Join the party. Catherine, get Morgan a drink. No, thank you, I said loudly enough that heads turned in our direction. I will wait until your guests leave. We need to talk. My mother grabbed my elbow and steered me toward the kitchen. You are making a scene, she hissed. These people are important to your father's new venture. More important than your grandson, apparently. Her face hardened. You are being childish. Sometimes adult obligations take precedence over children's parties. I extricated my arm from her grip. I will wait in the study. Come find me when your adult obligations are concluded. For 2 excruciating hours, I sat in my father's study, surrounded by the trappings of his success, awards, photographs with celebrities and politicians' expensive art. Not a single photo of Liam was displayed. There were a few formal portraits of me at graduations, the kind of achievements they deemed worthy of documentation. Finally, I heard the last guests leave and the front door close. My parents entered the study together, a united front as always when confronted. That was completely inappropriate, my father began. You embarrassed us in front of the Morgensterns, who are considering a significant investment. Inappropriate. I stood up, anger finally breaking through my composed facade. You want to talk about inappropriate? How about texting your daughter that you don't recognize her child? How about missing every significant moment in his life while constantly asking for money? We explained our position, my mother said stiffly. We advised against having a child when your financial situation was inadequate. You chose to ignore our counsel. My financial situation was perfectly fine until you started treating me like your personal ATM. I pulled out the bank statements I had brought. $60,000 in the past year. Money we could have used for Liam's future. Money you promised to repay and never did. My father waved dismissively. That is how family works. Resources flow where they are needed. When we were establishing ourselves, your grandparents helped us. And did you reject them or their children when they needed emotional support? Did you tell them their children weren't worthy of recognition? That is different, my mother interjected. Your grandparents understood proper family planning. They respected financial responsibility. I laughed incredulously. This isn't about financial responsibility. You live in a 5,000 square foot house. You drive matching luxury cars. You host champagne parties for potential investors. Where is your financial responsibility? My father's face darkened. You have no idea the pressures we face maintaining our position. The social obligations, the expectations. You are right. I don't understand prioritizing appearances over genuine relationships. I don't understand rejecting an innocent child because his parents chose love and family over wealth accumulation. Such naive idealism, my father scoffed. Children are expenses, not investments. We tried to explain this to you. Now you see the reality. Reduced work hours, stretched finances. This is precisely what we warned against. And yet, I said quietly, I am happier than I have ever seen either of you. The statement hung in the air. My mother looked away first, a flicker of something, recognition, regret, crossing her face briefly before her mask of indifference returned. My father cleared his throat. Since you are here, we should discuss the investment property matter. We need that loan processed quickly. $70,000 should cover the renovations needed. I stared at him in disbelief. After everything, he was still focused on extracting money from me. Are you serious right now? Perfectly serious. Despite your emotional outburst, practical matters continue. The answer is no. Not just no to this request, but no to any future financial requests. Ever. My mother stepped forward, her voice taking on the cajoling tone she used when trying to manipulate me. Morgan, darling, you are upset about the birthday. We understand. Perhaps we could send Liam a special gift to make up for it. You don't get it, I said, shaking my head. This isn't about one missed birthday. This is about a lifetime of conditional love, of valuing money and status above relationships. I will not teach Liam that this is normal or acceptable. Don't be dramatic, my father snapped. You would cut us off financially over something so trivial. I would cut you off financially because you cut us off emotionally. You literally said you don't recognize Liam as your grandson. Why would I fund people who reject my child? My father laughed, that dismissive laugh I had grown to hate. You will reconsider when the emotion passes. You always do. Not this time. I gathered my things and headed for the door. By the way, how much financial trouble are you really in? Because it seems strange that you keep needing loans when your lifestyle hasn't changed at all. Something flickered across my father's face, worry quickly masked by anger. Our finances are none of your concern. They became my concern when you started taking my family's money. Money for Liam's future. My mother suddenly looked nervous. James, perhaps we should discuss this another time when everyone is calmer. But I had seen enough to confirm my suspicions. You are in serious financial trouble, aren't you? And you have been using my money not to solve problems but to maintain appearances. You have no idea what you are talking about, my father blustered, but his confidence seemed forced. I think I do, and it stops now. I turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. If I cut you off financially, you mentioned there would be consequences. What exactly did you mean by that? My father's expression hardened. Figure it out. Family works both ways. Support goes both ways. You cannot expect to refuse us help and still receive benefits. What benefits? The privilege of being criticized and found wanting. The joy of watching you ignore my son while asking for money. I think we will manage without those particular benefits. As I walked out, my mother called after me. Morgan, you are overreacting. Call us when you have calmed down. I turned back one final time. I am perfectly calm. For the first time in my life, I see you both clearly. I am sorry that your grandson will never know his grandparents, but that is your choice, not mine. The drive home was emotional but liberating. I felt as though I had finally stood up for myself and for Liam after years of seeking approval I would never receive. When I arrived home, Noah was playing with Liam in the living room. He took one look at my face and opened his arms. I fell into them exhausted but resolute. "I am done," I whispered. "They will never change." "Then we move forward without them," Noah said simply. "We will surround Liam with people who love him for exactly who he is." Back home with Noah and Liam, I felt emotionally drained, but strangely empowered. After putting Liam to bed, Noah and I sat on the porch swing, my head on his shoulder, as I recounted every detail of the confrontation. "I am proud of you," Noah said, squeezing my hand. "Standing up to them couldn't have been easy." The strangest part was realizing they are not the financially responsible, successful people they pretend to be. Something is seriously wrong with their finances, but they are more concerned with maintaining the illusion of wealth than fixing the actual problem. Noah nodded thoughtfully. "That explains the increasingly desperate loans. But we need to protect ourselves now. I think we should document everything officially." The next morning, we called Mark Steinberg, a family lawyer Noah knew through work. He came to our house that afternoon, reviewing our situation with professional detachment. "Based on what you have described and these bank transfers, these were clearly loans, not gifts," Mark confirmed. "The text messages acknowledging repayment terms, even loosely defined ones, strengthen your position." "What should we do?" I asked. "I recommend sending a formal loan consolidation document. We will calculate the total amount with reasonable interest, establish a payment schedule, and make it clear no further loans will be provided." For the next few days, Mark worked on the paperwork while Noah and I gathered all communication records about the money. The total was staggering, nearly $80,000 when everything was tallied. "I had no idea it had gotten this high," I whispered, looking at the final figure. "They were counting on that," Noah said gently. "They were counting on your emotional attachment preventing you from keeping track." A week after Liam's birthday party, we finalized the documents. Mark advised sending them both electronically and by certified mail to create a formal record. The email went out first with a professional but firm message. "James and Catherine attached. Please find documentation of all outstanding loans totaling $79,450. We have established a reasonable repayment schedule beginning next month. No further financial assistance will be provided. Please acknowledge receipt and acceptance of these terms within 5 business days." I clicked send, then sat back feeling both terrified and relieved. Noah brought me a cup of tea and sat beside me. "Now we wait," he said. We didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. First came text messages from my mother. "What is the meaning of this? This is not how family treats family. Call immediately to discuss this misunderstanding. Your father is absolutely livid." Then my father's calls started coming in one after another. I let them go to voicemail following Mark's advice not to engage in unrecorded conversations. The voicemails progressed from demanding to threatening to seemingly reasonable, a manipulation tactic I recognized from childhood. "Morgan, this formal approach is completely unnecessary. Call me back immediately. You are making a serious mistake. There will be repercussions for this behavior. Let us discuss this reasonably. I am sure we can come to a more family-oriented arrangement." Noah and I listened to the messages together, his arm around me protectively. "They are panicking," he observed. "They never expected you to actually hold them accountable." By evening, emails started arriving. The first was from my father's business email, formal and cold. "We do not recognize these alleged loans. Financial assistance between family members is not subject to repayment expectations. We suggest you reconsider this hostile approach before irreparable damage is done to family relations." I forwarded it to Mark, who responded quickly. "This is expected posturing. The certified letters will arrive tomorrow, making the formal nature of this arrangement clear. Continue to document all communication, but do not engage directly." The next day brought a new level of reaction. My mother called Noah's parents, attempting to enlist them as intermediaries. His mother called us immediately. "Catherine contacted me," she said, concern in her voice. "She was very upset, claiming you are destroying the family over money. I told her I support whatever decisions you two make. Thank you, I said, grateful for her unconditional support. Later that afternoon, my father's business partner Richard called. I had always liked Richard, who seemed more grounded than my father. Morgan, I hope you don't mind me reaching out, he began awkwardly. James mentioned you are having some disagreement about family finances. Did he tell you he and my mother refused to acknowledge my son as their grandson and missed his first birthday? I asked directly. There was a long pause. No, he did not mention that part. He said you were being unreasonable about some temporary loans. Richard, they have taken almost $80,000 from us while emotionally rejecting our child. Would you consider that reasonable? Another pause. I see. This explains some things, actually. What do you mean? Richard sighed. Morgan, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but your father has been making increasingly risky business decisions lately. There have been significant losses. I suspected personal financial issues might be driving this behavior. This confirmed my suspicions. Thank you for being honest with me. Take care of yourself and your family, Morgan. That is what matters in the end. Over the next few days, we learned more about my parents' situation through various channels. Apparently, they had overextended themselves financially trying to maintain their luxurious lifestyle despite business setbacks. They had borrowed from multiple sources, including several friends, using different excuses each time. The certified letters arrived at their home and the real explosion began. My father called my office. My mother called our neighbors. They even showed up at Noah's workplace. Each time they were met with the same response. All communication needed to go through Mark. 2 weeks after sending the documents, we received our first formal response from their lawyer. It was surprisingly conciliatory, requesting a payment plan with lower initial payments. Mark advised that this was a good sign. They were acknowledging the debt rather than contesting it. Meanwhile, through mutual acquaintances, we heard that my parents' carefully constructed facade was beginning to crumble. They had canceled their country club membership, citing scheduling conflicts. My mother had withdrawn from chairing the annual charity gala, an event she had dominated for years. My father was suddenly working remotely, more often, which friends suspected meant he had downsized his office space. I felt conflicted about these developments. On one hand, there was a certain satisfaction in knowing they were finally facing reality. On the other hand, I took no joy in their difficulties. I simply wanted the unhealthy dynamic to end. I never wanted to hurt them, I confessed to Noah one evening. I just wanted them to see Liam as a person worth knowing, not a financial liability. You didn't hurt them, Noah reassured me. Their own choices did. You simply stopped enabling those choices. About a month after Liam's birthday, I received an unexpected email from my mother's sister, Aunt Diane. We had never been close, as she and my mother had a strained relationship. Morgan, I heard about what happened with Catherine and James. I wanted you to know that their treatment of you and your son doesn't surprise me. They have always valued appearance over substance. Catherine did the same to me years ago when I chose to marry a teacher rather than the lawyer she thought suitable. Please know that if you and your family would like to connect with the extended family, many of us would welcome that opportunity. Her message brought tears to my eyes. I had always assumed the distance from extended family was mutual, but perhaps it had been engineered by my parents to maintain control. I replied to Aunt Diane, thanking her and sending recent photos of Liam. We arranged to meet for lunch the following week. It felt like the beginning of rebuilding family connections on healthier terms. 3 months after the confrontation, my parents attempted a new strategy. My mother called her voice uncharacteristically emotional. Morgan, we have been reflecting on our behavior. Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment. We would like to meet Liam properly. Family should be together. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Then she continued. And while we are rebuilding our relationship, perhaps we could discuss a more manageable approach to the financial matters. The payment schedule your lawyer proposed is quite aggressive. And there it was, the real motivation. Not a genuine desire to know their grandson, but another attempt to negotiate more favorable financial terms. The hope died as quickly as it had arisen. Mom, I am glad you want to know Liam. That door remains open, but the financial arrangement is non-negotiable. The two issues are entirely separate, as Dad himself pointed out. She huffed in frustration. You are being unreasonable, just like your father said. No, I am being clear about boundaries, something I should have learned long ago. The conversation ended tensely, and they made no further attempts at reconciliation that didn't involve financial concessions. It became clear that they were interested in Liam only as leverage, not as a person they wanted to love. Through it all, Noah remained my rock. They have shown you who they are, he reminded me gently. Believe them. I did believe them finally. And in accepting the truth about who my parents really were, I began to find peace with the situation. The little girl inside me who had always sought their approval began to quiet, replaced by the mother determined to protect her son from conditional love. 6 months after Liam's first birthday, our lives had transformed in ways I never could have anticipated. The formal separation from my parents, while painful, had created space for genuine growth and healing. Noah and I had recommitted to our financial goals, rebuilding the savings that had been depleted by my parents' loans. The repayment plan was proceeding, albeit with constant complaints and delays from my parents. More importantly, we had built a chosen family around Liam. Noah's parents remained loving and present grandparents. My Aunt Diane had become a regular visitor, bringing with her stories about my extended family that my parents had never shared. Several cousins I barely knew had reached out after hearing about the situation, eager to connect with the newest member of the family. Jessica, my best friend since college, had officially become Aunt Jess to Liam, spending every other Sunday with us for family dinners. Our neighbor Carlos and his husband Miguel, both early retirees in their 60s, had fallen in love with Liam and often invited us over for barbecues in their beautiful garden. This tapestry of diverse, loving relationships showed Liam that family comes in many forms. What mattered wasn't DNA or obligation, but genuine care and consistent presence. My own healing journey had been complicated but necessary. At Noah's suggestion, I had started seeing a therapist to process the complex emotions around my parents' rejection and my own childhood experiences. You didn't just lose your parents now, Dr. Winters had pointed out in an early session. You lost the parents you deserved to have as a child. That is a double grief. Those words had unlocked something in me. I began to understand that my relationship with my parents had always been conditional, always transactional. My value to them had been tied to my achievements, my compliance, my ability to enhance their social standing. Liam's birth had simply made this dynamic impossible to ignore any longer. Through therapy, I learned to identify the unhealthy patterns I had internalized. My tendency to overwork, my difficulty accepting help without feeling obligated, my fear that love could be withdrawn if I didn't perform perfectly, all were artifacts of my upbringing that I was determined not to pass on to my son. Noah noticed the changes. You laugh more easily now, he observed one evening as we watched Liam attempt to stack blocks on our living room floor. You seem lighter. I realized he was right. The constant anxiety of seeking approval had lifted. The energy I had spent maintaining a relationship with people who couldn't truly love me was now redirected to those who could. News about my parents came through mutual acquaintances rather than direct contact. They had finally sold their oversized mansion, downsizing to a still impressive but more manageable home. My father had restructured his business, stepping back from some of his more ambitious ventures. These changes seemed to be born of necessity rather than choice, but they were changes nonetheless. Occasionally, they would attempt contact, usually with some financial angle disguised as family reconciliation. Each time I maintained firm boundaries. They were welcome to build a relationship with Liam, but money was off the table. They never accepted these terms. As Liam grew and developed his own personality, stubborn, curious, joyful, I sometimes felt sadness that my parents would never know this amazing little person. I kept a photo album of his milestones, thinking perhaps someday they might want to see what they had missed. But I no longer put my life on hold, waiting for them to change. One unexpected outcome of this difficult journey was a profound clarification of my own values around money and success. Noah and I had many late-night conversations about what we wanted to teach Liam. I want him to understand that money is a tool, not a measure of worth, I explained. I want him to know that success is about contribution and connection, not accumulation. Noah nodded. And I want him to know that love does not come with conditions or scorecards. These conversations led us to make conscious choices about our lifestyle and priorities. We decided that time together mattered more than career advancement or material possessions. We chose experiences over things, relationships over status. Not because we rejected financial stability, we remained careful planners and savers, but because we refused to let money define us the way it had defined my parents. As Liam's second birthday approached, I felt none of the anxiety that had surrounded his first. We planned another backyard celebration, simple but joyful, surrounded by people who had shown up consistently throughout the year. I sent no invitation to my parents, understanding finally that their absence was their choice, not my failure. The journey toward forgiveness was ongoing and complex. I did not forgive to reconcile. That would require acknowledgement and change on their part that seemed unlikely to come. Instead, I forgave for my own peace to release the anger that threatened to harden my heart. Forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was okay, Dr. Winters had explained. It means you are choosing not to let their actions continue to harm you. Some days this was easier than others. Some nights I still dreamed of the parents I wished I had, the grandparents I wished for Liam. But increasingly I focused on the family we were building. Imperfect but genuine, bound by love rather than obligation. The most profound lesson in all of this was understanding that families are created by consistent love and respect, not just by birth. Every bedtime story with Liam, every skinned knee kissed better, every celebration of small victories. These were the threads from which real family bonds were woven. Perhaps someday my parents would understand what they had sacrificed on the altar of appearances and financial status. Perhaps they would regret missing their grandson's first steps, first words, first acts of kindness. But I could not base my life or Liam's on that possibility. Instead, I chose to focus on breaking the cycle. Where there had been conditional love, I offered acceptance. Where there had been criticism, I offered encouragement. Where there had been absence, I offered presence. Not perfectly. I was still learning, still healing. But genuinely and consistently. One evening, as I watched Noah reading to Liam before bed, their heads bent together over a colorful storybook, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. This was what mattered. This was success. This was wealth that could never be measured in dollars or status. The path forward was clear. We would continue building our family on a foundation of unconditional love. We would teach Liam that his worth was inherent, not earned. We would show him through our actions that healthy boundaries are an expression of self-respect, not selfishness. And if my parents someday chose to be part of that journey on healthy terms, the door would remain open. Not because I needed their approval anymore, but because forgiveness had freed me to offer connection without expectation. The greatest gift my parents' rejection had ultimately given me was freedom. Freedom from seeking validation from people incapable of giving it, freedom to define family and success on my own terms, freedom to break generational patterns and build something healthier for my son. That freedom was worth every painful moment of the journey. It was a legacy far more valuable than any financial inheritance could ever be. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember that choosing yourself and your children is not selfish. It is necessary sometimes. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about my journey of finding peace and building family on my own terms. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be valued for exactly who you are, not what you can provide to others.